What's up, craft beer aficionados and homebrewers? Welcome to the first ever brew day here on Flyin Brian J Beer Reviews. I'm going to be making a Saison or a farmhouse ale that I've dubbed Draw Me Like One of Your French Girls. Sure, the name's long and needs a little work, but I'm going with it for now. I'm going to show you all of my equipment, all of the ingredients that I'm going to put into this beer. It should be noted that I'm not going to really cool the wort at all prior to putting it into the fermenter. I'm just going to let it get down to 180 degrees on its own, put it in the fermenter, seal it up, then I will come back tomorrow and pitch my yeast and we'll go from there. Hopefully down the road, I will be able to review my own beer, tell you where I went wrong, what I could do better with my process and with the ingredients. But for right now, let's get going. First thing, milk jug. This is going to help me fill my kettle and fill everything that I need to fill. I'm also going to use it as a measuring device. I have municipal water here that I need to filter through a carbon filter, so my kettle cannot fit under the sink. Hot liquor tank that I've put, we jimmy rigged with a faucet, old faucet on there, so we don't need any filter at the bottom of this one because this is just the hot liquor tank. We're going to end up putting 170 degree water in there that's going to help us with our sparge. This is just sanitizer. I got Star San. So that keep everything clean. Spoon, necessary, you know, stirring stuff and everything like that. Here's our mash tun. I got this cooler for free from one of my uncles, and then I just went to Menards, my local hardware store, and fancied my own spigot. So I went a real cheap route. It works out, and then I don't have a real false bottom in there. I got a braided line from a hot water heater that I use to filter my grain bed. A little hose to transfer my wort from the mash tun into the kettle. 12 pounds of grain, 3 pounds of white wheat, and 9 pounds of domestic two-row. So 75% two-row, 25% wheat. What the wheat's going to do, it'll make it a little hazy, give it a slight sweetness, and overall just a really good mouthfeel too. Of course, here's our fermenter. And I also have a strainer that I'm going to pour the wort through, help to strain out some of the hops that I don't want. I'm going to be dry hopping with a different kind of hop. It'll maximize my potential for beer production. You know, I'm not going to have any waste. Of course, the airlock, really important. Kettle, we got some Whirlflox going to help coagulate some of the proteins, make the beer a little more, you know, clear, get some clarity. Coffee can lid. This is to help with the sparge so you don't disturb the grain bed when you're fly sparging. Pretty important, little simple piece of equipment there. Thermometer. The hops that I'm going to use, I'm going to be using half an ounce of Magnum, Cascade, and perhaps a little German Herzbrucker. So I'm going to be doing half an ounce of Magnum at 40 minutes because we're not cooling it, so we don't want to go 60. We're going to 40 minutes of half an ounce of Magnum. I'm going to go with a full ounce of Herzbrucker at knockout, and I'm going to do a full ounce of Cascade dry hop. Then of course, we got the scale over there, and also not noticed here, I'm using Bell Saison dry yeast. So let's get outside. There's 4 gallons of water in there. We're going to heat it up to 160 degrees to put it in the mash tun, to preheat the mash tun so we don't have too much heat loss when we add the grain and we actually go to mash in. So we're going to turn the gas on, light some fire under this son of a gun. So that shouldn't take too long to get up to temperature. Next thing we're going to do is get our water ready for the actual mash. Since we're doing 12 pounds of grain, I want to do a 1.25 quarts of water to a pound of grain ratio. So we're going to do 15 quarts, which is 3.75 gallons. I'm going to measure out with my milk jug. And then we're going to come back out here with that water in the kettle and get it to about 168 degrees. So that when we dough in, we can get this mash temperature to about 152 degrees. You want to shoot between 148 158 degrees. The lower it is, the more fermentable sugars you're going to pull out of it, and the drier and the thinner the mouthfeel is going to be on your beer. So let's get going on that. Alright, so I already put 1.5 gallons of water in there and my grain. Put the rest of the strike water in. All right, we got the grain in there. Now we're going to stir it with a spoon, and then we'll check our initial mash temperature. Make sure there's no air pockets or bunches of grain here. Having the surface area for the water so that we can extract the sugar from them. Make sure we feel it real good. All right, so we got our initial mash temperature that we wanted. We got it at 152 degrees. Put the cap on it and set a timer for 1 hour to 75 minutes. I'm probably going to go just 65 minutes just to be careful. Most of our sugar should be converted and ready to rock in about 45 minutes. But just to be safe, we're going to go for 65 minutes. While we wait for the mash tun to do its thing, about an hour, we're going to heat up the sparge water that's going to go in the hot liquor tank. We want it at 170 degrees. It's going to wash the grain when it's time to do our lautering, basically moving the wort from in the mash tun into the kettle, and washes it, and we can pull all the sugars necessary to ferment right out of it into the kettle, and we can boil that thing for an hour, and we're going to end up making a really darn good beer. Perhaps one of the most important parts about having a successful brew day is enjoying some craft brew or home brew while you're doing the damn thing. So I'm waiting for the mash tun to do its work, and I'm enjoying a winter ale by Zipline Brewing Company out of Lincoln, Nebraska. This beer is incredibly complex and diverse, so I don't have time to talk about it right now, but look out for the review of this beer in the days to come. It might already be on the channel, so look at my channel for a review of Zipline Winter Ale. So while I let this beer circulate through my bloodstream, let's get into recirculating this wort. So the next step is a recirculation. What I'm going to do is pull some of the wort out through the spigot here into my measuring cup and put it back in the top of the grain, and this is where my coffee can lid is going to come into play. It's going to help to not disturb the grain bed. We're going to do this 3 to 4 times so that we can get a good solid bed of grain, and it's going to filter itself on top of my faux false bottom. And this is so that we don't get too much trube in our end result, which is basically like waste. We don't want to waste too much wort. We don't want to waste too much beer. If we got 6 gallons of beer in the fermenter, you know what? I want to bottle 6 gallons. We're going to try to maximize that. All right, so it looks like the final temperature of our mash here is about 151, almost 152. So we hardly lost any heat during the mashing. So that's a really good sign. Now we can start the recirculation. And you want to do this slowly so that, again, you're not disturbing the grain bed. This and the lautering process, where we're going to be taking the sparge water, running it over here, and getting it into our kettle. It's a long and slow process. Long, low, and slow, like making love. We're making love to our wort here. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we're not going to have too much clarity in the beer because we're using a high percentage of wheat malt, but we want it as clear and with as little sediment as possible. If we have too much sediment in the bottling, at the bottling step, we're going to end up with a beer being over-carbonated and kind of difficult to drink. Difficult to pour into a glass because it's going to just turn into just almost pure foam if we have some sediment in there when we go to carbonate the damn thing. So we really want, this is an important step. It might seem tedious. Actually, the entire brewing process is tedious, but this is important for clarity, for maximizing your production of beer, and for the carbonation process later on. So we're not getting any sediment right now, but it's still not clear, which again, it's because of the wheat malt that we're using. Anyway, the end result of the beer is not going to be clear, but it's going to be tasty. So I've got my sparge water going super slow. I'm going to get about 1 inch to 2 inches of clear water on top of the wort that we want, just so it's constantly having more clear water at the top, working its way down to the wort. We'll go down here, turn the spigot on, long and slow, like making love, and we're going to fill this thing up to about 6.5 to 7 gallons so we can end up with our final result of about 5.5 gallons of tasty, scrumptious beer. All right, so the process is happening. We want both the sparge water and the lautering liquid to be going at the same pace, so that we're definitely cleaning out the grain, getting all the sugars that we can out of it, maximizing our alcohol production potential. And you can see in the line if we just come real close to the line here, you can kind of tell that it's got some color to it. When that starts running clear, that's when our wort is, you know, done, and then we're on to the sparge water purely, and that should be around the time when we're at our 6.5 to 7 gallons of collected pre-boil wort. So we've got a decent color for this beer. It should end up in the really low SRM. You know, I'm talking like 5 SRM. It's going to be real light in color, close to, you know, what you would think of when you see a Boulevard wheat or something like that. But it's going to be different because we're adding that Saison yeast. Alright, so I've collected what should be between 6.5 and 7 gallons of glorious, glorious wort. Now what we're going to do, take this thing outside again, put it on the burner. Okay, so the boil has started. I'm going to start a timer for 20 minutes. After that timer has concluded, I will add the 1/2 ounce of Magnum hops, followed by starting another timer for 40 minutes. At the end of that timer, I will add the Whirlflock and the Herzbrucker. 20 minutes has passed. You can get some of the sweetness from the smell coming on, and that steam coming off the wort here. Something that's not great is that you can see that we evidently got some grain dust in the wort. There's a lot of grain that's going to be turned into trub later on, which is going to really behoove us to strain it when we're putting it into the fermenter. But anyway, let's get the 1/2 ounce of Magnum hops into this wort. Simple as that. So once you put the hops into the wort, you want to really be careful and watch, because sometimes you can get some boil over. It seems to be when you add hops, the boil just gets really raging, so got to keep an eye on it. We don't want any boil off, we don't want any overflow, even though we're outside here, and I just simply wouldn't clean it up. But you know, we got to be careful here. We don't want to lose any wort. Alright, so we've been boiling for an hour. We're going to throw in the Whirlflock. I'm going to shut the gas off, and I will add the 1 ounce of German Herzbrucker. I'll take it off the heat. I'm going to whirlpool it for a little while. Once it gets to 180 degrees, then I'm going to put it in the fermenter. Okay, so I got the wort down to 170 degrees, basically by putting the kettle in some snow. The reason why I want it below 180 and I want it above 150 as well is below 180 is where my fermenter is rated for, and I want it above 150 because above 150 degrees it'll still have antibacterial properties. So we're going to put it in the fermenter. I'll come back tomorrow, and then we will add the Bell Saison yeast and also the 1 ounce dry hopped Cascade hops. Alright, so it looks like we captured almost exactly 5.5 gallons of wort that will soon be beer, so I'm pretty stoked about that. We're going to put a cap on this thing, come back tomorrow, hopefully in like 16 hours since we originally put the wort into the fermenter. What we're going to do is shake the piss out of it to aerate it, get some foam going. We're going to pop the top on it. I'm going to drop in the 1 ounce of Cascade hops that I'm dry hopping with. I'm going to put them in this mesh ball to help, once again, maximize my beer production and minimize trub. And then the most important ingredient after we get done with that is adding this Bell Saison yeast by Danstar. It says to rehydrate it on the back, but I've used it multiple times without rehydrating it, and it worked perfectly. This batch produced an original gravity of 1.057, which I predict will end up with 6.3% alcohol by volume. So that's it. In about 10 to 12 days, I'm putting 2 gallons of it into a secondary fermenter. But other than that, in 2 weeks, I'll be bottling it. And then in 2 weeks from starting the bottling process, I will pop the top on it and review it right here on the channel, where I will pull no punches reviewing Flyin Brian J's farmhouse/Saison ale named Draw Me Like One of Your French Girls. I hope you enjoyed the brew day, guys. Give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you on my next one. Namaste. Cheers.